Picture this. You've got $42 in your account, and the check engine light turns on. In that moment, you're not just broke, you're cornered. You know the repair costs $300, but you don't have that $300. So you do what millions of people do. You pretend the problem isn't there. Turn the music up, hope it goes away, ignore reality. 2 months later, tow truck, down $200. Repair bill, $2,000. Missed shifts, another $300. That one small lack of $300 just turned into a $2,500 disaster. And that's not bad luck. That's a system. That's the math of being broke. And if you think it's just a coincidence, you're already inside the trap.
If you're here right now, it's probably because one simple but uncomfortable idea hit you. Not having money actually makes life more expensive. In this video, I'm gonna break it down with real numbers, no illusions and no motivational fairy tales, and show you why someone without a financial cushion ends up overpaying for their car, groceries, housing, and even their own mistakes. We're gonna unpack the actual mechanism, the math of being broke, the reason cheap decisions end up costing more in the long run, and why small problems turn into big financial hits. This isn't about crypto or get-rich-quick schemes. It's about why you can work harder every year and still feel like you're not getting ahead. And most importantly, I'm not just gonna show you the trap, I'm gonna show you the way out. The hardest part isn't even the lack of money. The hardest part is the constant feeling of fragility. It's living in a state where one bad day can wipe out your entire month. It's opening your banking app not out of curiosity, but with anxiety. It's feeling that chill every time you get a random notification on your phone and thinking, please don't let that be a charge. You work, you try, you cut back on small things, but somehow it still feels like you're standing still, like you're running on a treadmill, sweating, pushing, doing the work, but not actually moving forward. And the most humiliating part isn't the money itself. It's the feeling that you're always catching up, that you're never ahead, that you don't have the right to make a mistake. People with a cushion can afford a misstep. They can handle a breakdown, a delay, an unexpected bill without it shaking their whole system. But for you, every small issue turns into stress. Every bill feels like a test of survival. And slowly, a dangerous thought starts to form. Maybe something's wrong with me. Maybe I'm just bad at managing my life. That's the real pain. Not just being short on cash, but feeling like the system is stronger than you. Like you're playing a game where the rules are against you and the penalties hit faster than you can recover. If you've ever felt that tightness in your chest when you realize your margin for error is zero, then you know exactly what I'm talking about.
But the anxiety isn't even the worst part. The worst part starts when you realize it's not a one-time thing. It's not just one bad month. It's a repeating pattern. You delay a repair because you don't have the cash. Then you end up paying 3 times more. You buy the cheap version because you don't have a choice. Then you buy it again. You postpone a doctor's visit because now isn't a good time. Then you're treating a complication instead of a small issue. And every time you tell yourself it's just bad luck, just a rough patch, just a tough season. But eventually there's a moment when it hits you. This isn't a season, it's a system. And you're inside it. You start to see that it's not about one specific car or one specific purchase. It's about the fact that you have no cushion, no room for error, no breathing space to think calmly. You're not choosing the best option. You're choosing the most urgent one. You're not building a future. You're putting out fires. And the most dangerous part is that over time, you get used to it. You start to see constant stress, constant setbacks, constant shortage as normal. You stop asking, why is this happening? Because it feels like this is just how life works for everyone. But it's not. There are people for whom a breakdown is an inconvenience. For you, it's a hit to your entire survival system. And if nothing changes, it only gets harder. Every new mistake costs more than the last. Every delay makes the consequences heavier. Every "I'll deal with it later" turns into "why didn't I handle this sooner?" That's when you realize the problem isn't one purchase. The problem is the model of living, where not having money keeps multiplying your losses. A few years ago, I had a friend named Bob. Regular guy. Worked at a warehouse, picked up extra shifts on weekends. Not a party guy, not a big spender. He wasn't blowing money on stupid stuff. He was just living paycheck to paycheck. One day, his car started having issues. Nothing dramatic at first. The radiator was leaking a little. The mechanic told him, fix it now for about $250 to $300 and you'll be good for a long time. But Bob had around $100 in his account and rent due the next week, so he decided to drive it a little longer. A month later, the car overheated in traffic. End result, tow truck, new radiator, plus engine damage. The total bill was close to $1,800. He had to borrow, some from friends, some on a credit card, some from family. And the worst part wasn't just the repair, it was the extra cost of borrowing money simply because he didn't have that original $300 at the right time. But it didn't stop there. While he was paying off the car debt, his fridge broke. He bought the cheapest one he could find because he didn't have options. A year later, it started acting up, then another issue. Over 3 years, he ended up spending more than he would have if he had just bought a solid, reliable fridge from the start. At one point, we sat down and broke down his last 2 years on paper. No emotions, no excuses, just numbers. And the truth was clear. He wasn't bad with money, he was constantly paying a penalty for not having a cushion. He wasn't saving, he was surviving. And survival mode is almost always more expensive. So we made one shift. We stopped trying to patch everything at once and focused on building a buffer. He cut out anything non-essential, sold old electronics, picked up extra shifts for a short period. The goal wasn't to get rich. The goal was to build that first emergency cushion so he wouldn't have to finance every problem. 6 months later, he had a small reserve. And for the first time in a long time, a breakdown didn't knock him off balance. It was just an expense, not a disaster. Here's the key point. Bob's problem wasn't his character. It wasn't laziness. His problem was living without a financial buffer, where every small issue multiplied. The good news is, this system works both ways. Once you understand it, you can flip it. And I'm about to show you how.
Here's the most important thing you need to understand. This is not a life sentence. It's not your destiny, and it's not a label you're stuck with forever. It's a mechanism, and mechanisms can be broken. If you don't want to end up in Bob's situation, you have to learn to see beyond the price tag and focus on the consequences. You have to stop choosing based on just get me to the next paycheck and start looking at total cost, what this decision will actually cost you over 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. The problem isn't that you don't have enough money. The problem is that no one taught you how this hidden poverty tax works. No one explained that when you don't have a buffer, your life automatically becomes more expensive. In this video, I'm breaking down step by step how to get out of that trap, how to build your first cushion, how to identify where you're losing the most, how to stop patching holes and start sealing them for good. You don't have to keep playing this game by someone else's rules, but you do have to understand exactly where the math is working against you. And that's what we're about to break down.
I told you I'd break down the mechanism. No fluff, no motivational fairy tales. So here's the structure. When you don't have a financial buffer, even a small problem automatically becomes expensive. Not because you're stupid, not because you're lazy, but because you don't have the time or space to make the best decision. There are 3 ways people react to a problem. If someone has a cushion, they fix it early and minimize the damage. If someone doesn't, they either delay it or take the most expensive, urgent option. And delayed problems almost always grow. A small crack turns into a major repair. A minor breakdown becomes a full replacement. One missed payment turns into a chain of penalties. That's the first layer of the math of being broke. Lack of liquidity increases the final bill. When your budget is tight, you focus on the price right now, but the system makes money off the fact that you don't calculate total cost of ownership. Simple example. Product A costs $20 and lasts 1 year. Product B costs $60 and lasts 5 years. At first glance, A looks cheaper, but over 5 years you buy it 5 times and spend $100. That's more than the $60 option. The problem isn't choosing the cheap item. The problem is not having the ability to choose the durable one. When I said you overpay for your car, groceries, housing, and even your own mistakes, this is what I meant. You're paying a premium for not having capital. When you live paycheck to paycheck, you operate in right now mode. Urgent replacement, urgent payment, urgent side hustle. Urgency destroys good options. You can't wait for better timing. You can't compare properly. You can't walk away from bad terms. You take what's available because you don't have room to wait, and every time you pay for urgency. But this goes deeper than numbers. Here's the real mechanism. When someone is constantly stressed about basic bills, their brain shifts into survival mode. That's not a metaphor, it's physiology. In survival mode, you don't think 3 years ahead. You think until Friday.
You don't build systems, you plug holes. And in that state, it's almost impossible to break the cycle because you can't see strategy. You only see the next payment. This isn't about intelligence, it's about available mental bandwidth. Now here's the most important part I promised you, the exit. The first step is not get rich. The first step is to stop paying the biggest penalty. You need to audit your life and identify where you are overpaying because you lack a buffer. It might be constant small fees, replacing cheap items again and again, overpriced payments because of poor buying conditions, repeated emergency expenses that could have been prevented. You pick one major leak, not everything at once, just one. Then your job is to build a buffer that closes that exact point of risk. Like I said earlier, you have to stop looking at price and start looking at consequences. This is where that idea becomes practical. If you need $500 to fix your car and avoid losing thousands later, then your goal is not to live well. Your goal is to eliminate that specific risk. You temporarily cut non-essential spending. You pick up extra work. You sell what you don't need. That's not humiliation, that's strategy. Once the first buffer exists, the game changes. A flat tire stops being a crisis. A broken appliance stops being a debt spiral. You start making decisions from strength instead of panic. The math of being broke isn't about character. It's about lack of liquidity and the compounding effect of small losses. When you build even a small reserve, your decisions become cheaper. Your life becomes more predictable. Your mistakes stop costing double. You stop paying twice. That's the mechanism I was talking about from the beginning. Not theory, not philosophy, a real penalty system and a real way out. Now you have the map. The only question left is whether you're going to use it.
Now, the question isn't whether you understand the mechanism. The question is whether you're ready to break it. Most people watch videos like this, nod along, and then go right back to living the same way. They agree with the logic, but they never change the structure of their decisions. A year later, it's the same car, the same debt, the same unexpected expenses. If you saw yourself in this breakdown, that's not a reason to feel ashamed. It's a signal to act. You don't have to flip your entire life overnight. You don't need to become financially free in a week. You need to take one strategic step. Stop being easy prey for the penalty system. Identify your most expensive leak, the place where you're paying the most simply because you don't have a buffer. Then set a real goal to close it in the next few months. Not some vague, "I'll save someday," but a specific plan to build a cushion around that exact risk. Every extra hour worked, every unnecessary item sold, every temporary cut in spending should have one purpose: eliminate the biggest risk in your life. This isn't about suffering for discipline, it's about taking back control. Without a buffer, you react. With a buffer, you choose. And if you're truly tired of living in constant vulnerability, the time to start isn't next year. It's not after your next paycheck, it's now, with a clear decision about which hole you're going to close first.
If this breakdown made you look at your finances differently, that means you've already started thinking in systems, and that's exactly who this channel is for. You won't find fairy tales about easy money or secret hacks here. We're going to break down real mechanisms, the ones that either drag you down or help you escape the cycle of constant losses. We'll talk about how to stop paying double for everything and how to build a structure where money works for you instead of against you. If that approach resonates with you, subscribe to the channel. This isn't about numbers. It's about building a circle of people who want to play smarter, not just harder. Hit like if you saw yourself in this video. That helps the algorithm show it to someone else who's living in constant vulnerability and doesn't understand why life always costs them more. And drop a comment telling me where your biggest leak is. Is it your car, housing, debt, everyday expenses? What's hitting you the hardest? I read the comments, and I'll break down the most common situations in future videos. If you're still watching, that means you're tired of just surviving. Let's build a system. When you turned on this video, you were probably feeling one thing: constant pressure. The sense that life is more expensive than it should be, that you're working hard, doing your best, and still somehow paying more than everyone else. At the beginning, all you could see were the outcomes: breakdowns, fees, unexpected expenses, stress. And it felt like bad luck or personal mistakes. Now you see the mechanism. You understand that the problem isn't your character or bad luck. The problem is the lack of a buffer that turns every small issue into an expensive one. You've seen how cheap decisions become the most expensive ones, how urgency eats your money, how not having a cushion forces you to pay double, and most importantly, you now know the way out isn't some sudden income spike or miracle scheme. The way out is stopping the biggest penalty and starting to build protection. At the start of this video, you might have felt powerless. Now you have clarity, and clarity is stronger than panic. You can keep living in reaction mode, or you can start playing ahead of the problem. The difference between those two paths isn't luck, it's a decision. And if you've watched this far, it means there's already a part of you that's ready to stop paying double for everything.